Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm the project manager for Realtime Fitness. It's really nice to virtually meet you all. And so for our key QA, we have Mikkel. Our Scrum Master is Sean. Senior developer is Aris, and developer in tools is Hermine. So for our product, we identified the lack of data that's being collected at the gym. So we created a product that collects and analyzes gym users' data that would teach users how to save time, effort, and teach social distancing due to COVID-19 at the gym. Our data that we are extracting will be securely stored in a Mysql database that will be hashed and encrypted for users of our users' data. So now I'm going to pass it on to Mikkel.
So what is real-time fitness? Real-time fitness is an indoor tracking system that relies on the Microsoft Data Streamer plugin tool to keep track of the live data that's going to be circulated with gyms, such as the total number of members in the facility, the number of members in each room, identifying the peak times, and more features that we'll expand on later. Next slide, please. Microsoft Excel Data Streamer is a very useful tool. It's becoming more and more popular. What makes it so unique is the two-way data transfer to Excel that transfers live data from a microcontroller or either importing, sidecarring data into the worksheets. This automatically transfers into live data. It's one of the only tools available right now that has physical world data almost instantaneously delivered to a computer. It can allow students to really focus less on recording the data during labs and other similar projects and focus more on the analytic portion of their engineering and scientific practices. As opposed to writing down each entry for labs as they're conducting experiments, students can immediately move to analyzing the data that's entered. So the data streamer is going to collect that data for you and take care of the process, more or less. Next slide, please. Next slide. So how do we apply this to our project? Well, as we all know, this last year has been a big transition period for all of us. Safety and well-being has become a very big part of our day-to-day lives, and especially managing how to adapt to these changes. That's why we wanted to integrate Microsoft Excel Data Streamer with a project that would have been beneficial during a pandemic. Exercise seemed crucial at a time, given that we spend now most of our day indoors and would be more inclined to neglect our health. And since there are so many regulations now in regards to capacity, we wanted the fastest and most efficient way to look at maybe how we could return people back to their fitness routines and their lifestyles while being safe and following these rules. Given that Microsoft Data Streamer provides us with the fastest results for live data, we found that this would be our best option since it could most accurately reflect who's going in and out of a gym via live data as fast as possible, and integrating this with an application which would help ensure that no matter how many people are coming in and out requesting a class, we have live data. It's going to tell us if this is possible or if it's not, and it's going to provide people with a sense of security. Next slide, please. So the data process begins by collecting the data through individual scanners in each of the 5 rooms. Those rooms being the free weights, weighted machine, cardio room, basketball, and exercise classrooms. These are going to be responsible for the data for each individual room. Next slide, please. We're also going to have 2 more scanners in the entry and exit of the gym. This is going to just account for the entire gym's database and the total count of the users coming in and out. So at a certain point, if we just hit peak members, unfortunately, we will have to send out some kind of notification that no user can enter at the time. Next slide, please. So here, again, we're going to touch on how we collect the data. So upon entering each room, a user is going to go and scan their barcode. And if the capacity is safe based on the information from the data streamer, then users will be granted access. And the total count of the entire gym and the rooms itself will be updated in the data streamer file. Next slide, please. So as you can see, here's an example of the mock floor plan. We're going to have separate rooms, all with windows, all with separate scanner entry points that either allow you to come in or not. So these are pretty much entry checks. So every time someone's going in, they walk to a different room, that same ID is going to be used and circulated within the database and is going to check if it's the capacity is safe and if it's being used somewhere else. Next slide, please. So as you can see below, here's an example of the collected data streamer real-time data tracking that will take place where upon scanning, it would send this information. It would send these key features for us, being the date, time, ID, barcode name, and then gender. This entire process will help us to get the most important and useful part of the data streamer, which is essentially the data analytics. Next slide, please. So before we get to the data analytics, we have to remember that this is based on code and macros that we configured and placed inside the data streamer's computational file tab. So what this does is the constant feeding of live data is going to be changing. Our graphs will dynamically change as user enters or leaves a room. The code helps us understand at any given point if there is any discrepancies between where the user is, or if we've reached capacity or not. And if we go to the next slide, that's where we get these results. So right now we'll show you in our demo video, but these graphs are dynamically changing throughout the day. So it'll provide us visual data analytics on room capacity, average time spending, which indicates how much time a user spends in each room. In addition to this, we'll also get more detailed and clear look at the peak time hours of the facility, gender preferences of exercise equipment in class, and everything else based on the time spent in specific rooms, as you can see on the bottom right-hand side. This is going to be appealing to stakeholders, since they can now understand on a deeper level the experience of gym customers and what changes they can make, such as bigger rooms, more equipment, and more interesting classes for everyone. So, for example, if we look at one of these graphs, we can read here, see the total members, we can see the time spent. So if there is a trend in data where a pattern is showing that weight machines and exercise classes are always near capacity, gym owners and shareholders can accommodate by expanding their rooms, buying new equipment, or adding additional classes that provides a more distributed gym capacity over time and a more pleasant experience for gym customers and a safer one during COVID-19. Next slide. And then another big driving force for our application and choice of Microsoft Data Streamer was the market analysis and research. Upon research, we thought that this would be a great application and interesting to shareholders, since the streaming analytics market value is expected to grow from 9.91 billion to 35.97 billion in the next few years, and that it accounts for 28.3% of the streaming analytics market share. Next slide. And here's going to be our demo, which Kevin will take over for.
Give me 1 second. So just to so since our project is more based on the gym physically, like we had to use their building, we had to do our demo of what it would look like, because as of now, there is like no gym present is using what our system is, and what we are trying to propose of what it would look like and how it would benefit stakeholders. So for example, we're going to use LA Fitness, and then you're going to see me in a second walking into the gym and scanning my barcode on my gym map to gain access into the gym. So next, the first thing I want to do is I want to go to the free weights room. So what I do is, like I said, they don't have that. So I had to make a really bad video of how it would look like, of how I scan my gym barcode. And now I am working out in the free weights room. So what I usually do after free weights room is I want to go to the weighted machines rooms. So yet again, my very bad video, unfortunately, but I scan my barcode and now I have access to the weighting machines. So now you can see me doing some exercises that I should really be consistent with. And lastly, I wanted to do cardio to end off the day. So I would grab my gym app ID, scan it on the gym barcode scanners, and now I have access to attempt to do cardio. Yeah, I'm just probably going to walk a couple steps. And now, as you saw earlier, how I scanned into the gym, how I scanned into specific rooms in the gym. So with each scan, those scans populate into our Microsoft Data Streamer Excel file. So right here, you'll see the current scan, which whoever just scanned, and then right here, you'll see a log. So for presentation purposes, we had a full day's worth of scan. So from the time they open till the time they close, all that data will be running into our data streamer file. So as you can see, right here's the date, so 5/6. And right here, it tells you the time that a user scans in. These 3-digit code is unique for every user, is their own personal code. This dash at the end will identify if which room or if they're scanning in or out. So 0 will be scanning in, 1 through 5 would be the specific rooms we identified, and 6 will be when they leave. And right here will say who did what. So as you can see, this is a whole day log. So next is where our computation is. So in this table right here is where we extract from the previous file that you just saw the full barcode, and then the left portion is the 3-digit that I was mentioning about the unique part. The right is the specific room or in and out that they do. This middle table is just our database for the purposes of running our analytics. So it has all the users' information, unique ID, and as people scan in and out, a room will populate 1, but the other one will turn to 0. So you can see right here, people are leaving because they just scanned. So that's how we calculated it. So for here is where we're reflecting the computation, which was pulling in the information from that data stream file, that flooding information. So this will be a visualization of how the data that is pouring in would look like throughout the day. Yeah, so as you can see, it's continuously running depending on what or who or when a person scans. For the top table, the bottom is a pie chart for just visualization purposes, so people can read it easier. And the table on top keeps track just to make sure the two charts on the bottom are appropriately moving. Next, we have our daily report. So what our goal for the daily report is to track what the peak hours or the most busy hours are for the day at the gym. So then again, we're still extracting the data from that data streamer file. And on the bottom right here, we broke it down per hour just so we can have a good amount of range. And the purpose of this is to show users like, okay, if it's more packed in the morning, and for safety reasons, I would rather go when it's not that busy. And usually after work, when everyone gets off work, that's when the most busiest part of the gym is for. I mean, it is. So it will show users like, okay, I want to avoid this time so I can have a more efficient, more safe workout and be in my own little bubble. And lastly, we have the average time spent by users in each room. So from all that data that we just saw, we see that cardio average time each user spends is 32 minutes or around 32 minutes. Weighted machines is 22, 23. Free weights, 30. Basketball courts, around 35. And exercise classrooms, which like the, the Zoom yogas, not Zoom, sorry. Zumba, yoga, it's pretty flat because it's a exact amount of time that the classes go on for. So now we will continue on the slides, and I'll pass it back on Mikkel for the key mechanic.
When it came to the structure of our application, our key mechanics are, again, based on the barcode scanners that are placed throughout the gym. So initially, when a user enters the gym, they scan their member's ID based on the last digit of the designated barcode scanner. That data is transferred to Microsoft Data Streamer, which stores all the members' personal information, such as profile, user ID, gender, time entered. The scanned barcode data then goes to our CSV file, which we import to the data streamer. And based on the Excel macros and formulas we have, it'll dynamically change the structure of data that's being transferred based on the certain criteria that members have. So such as, for example, if a member is left an area, is now populating a different section of the gym. So changes will be made to total count, and the specific room is changed as well for that user. They're assigned a different room. Next slide, please.
So now I'll be talking about what our stakeholder requests were for this semester, which was more data analysis. So what we decided to do was collect average time spent by users in each room. And we're still working on the gender part. We got to tweak a couple formulas, but we haven't got that exactly completed yet. So we didn't want to show it to you guys. For analysis part, so what our goal was is to, like how Mikkel mentioned before, depending on average time spent by users in each room, gym owners can, or gym businesses can expand sizes of of the popular rooms, decrease of what's not popular, maybe add more equipment, exercise classes. So just more learning experience of better understanding of what each user or their users' behavior and patterns and preferences are.
So moving on to our MySQL database, what we did is when it came to the distribution of the MySQL database, this information will be sent here from the data streamer, from the data we collected, and then this database would send notifications to a user's application. So if there are rooms available, it'll allow them to scan and enter. If it's near capacity, it'll warn them. And then if it's at capacity, check back again. Next slide, please. As far as the security, we chose two different methods, which was to protect the user's emails and passwords and their sensitive information based on hashing and encryption. Next slide, please. So we used hashing to store passwords to provide more secure communication for user login. We thought this was suitable because of the mathematical properties and the irreversible nature that it has. So the user gym profile is created, the user password is hashed, and during the login, we hash it compared to the hash associated with the email, and if it's valid, grant them access. Next slide, please. And lastly, for the sensitive information, we encrypted it using semantic encryption to provide security and also try out the faster encryption process. The sender of the data has to exchange the encryption key with the recipient before he or she can decrypt that message. So there will be one person who holds the main key. Next slide, please. So overall, using this tool and application will make the club experience safer and more rewarding for members. It will also provide stakeholders with a tool that's always useful in really any environment where students or business owners are looking for a clear way to track live data and put more emphasis on the analytics portion of information that's being collected. I'd like to thank Professor Chaya and our fellow classmates and everyone here for inspiring us and helping us with this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, any questions for our speakers?
So was there coding involved in the scanning, or were you just putting data in to simulate the whole scanner part of it?
Yes, so there is coding. I'll just show you our file. So this is how we extract the data that, sorry, one more time, that you see right here, that's pouring in. So our senior developer, for each cell, it pulls in, each cell has a different formula that pulls in a specific information. Yeah, so this is more for him to explain. Aris, if you're here. Okay, I don't think he's here. But yeah, so this is the coding that we have done for pulling the information I was pouring into the graphs that use the pie chart, bar chart, and data report that reflects on it. Oops.
So are you guys creating barcodes for people, or is that something that the gym already does?
So due to the fact that our project is more based on like a real life, we have to trust we're basically using it on a business, like basically the gym business. So what we did in order to make our project work was, yes, we did create individual barcodes for each user. And yeah, that took a little while, but that was the only way we can show how our project would work. But when we got this project in fall, everything was closed, and we thought this was a great idea of like, okay, this is what it will look like if it reopens. And at that time, we didn't know when it even would reopen.
Right, and we had to always change the barcode. So we did have to code that portion to create specific barcodes for each user, because each barcode would hold a different formula in there. So even though they were based on the same system, we would need an identifier for each person. So that is a portion we collected, that we created. We had to base it on certain numbers and information that we kind of used to structure our entire program. So we used the 1, 2, 3 dash method. So we had to have 3 random numbers followed by the room, or if they're entering or exiting a gym number, which is our last digit that we use as the code to tell us that.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our speakers? Okay. If there aren't any other questions, that in fact is our last talk. So I did want to extend a thank you to the Real-Time Fitness group